This is Dan Smith with another FITV News update. As you may know, at approximately 6 p.m. last evening, a Piper PA-44 twin-engine aircraft based out of Florida Tech School of Aviation crashed during takeoff at Palm Beach International Airport. We now go to Dean Winston Scott and Wes Sumner of University Communications at the Emil Buehler School of Aviation.
Florida Institute of Technology is mourning the loss of 4 people killed in a routine training flight that crashed on takeoff from Palm Beach International Airport at approximately 6 p.m. Thursday. The Piper Seminole aircraft was en route back to Melbourne from the Bahamas as part of a training exercise. 4 individuals were aboard the aircraft, 2 currently enrolled students, the flight instructor, and 1 additional passenger. Those who were killed in the crash: Christopher Joy Henniger, Florida Tech flight student from Memphis, Tennessee, age 22. He was due to graduate from Florida Tech College of Aeronautics in December. Jenny Teresa Frembling, FIT Aviation employee and instructor on the aircraft. From Melbourne, Florida, age 26, also a Florida Tech alumna, class of 2006. Jordan Lee Agostini, Florida Tech student and FIT Aviation flight instructor from Broomall, Pennsylvania, age 21, due to graduate from Florida Tech College of Aeronautics in December. The 4th person died later at the hospital from injuries that were sustained in the crash. Kyle Henniger, passenger, brother of the flight student and a Florida Tech alumnus, class of 2008, Palm Bay, Florida, age 26. He was a Florida Tech Informational Technology employee. Florida Tech has set up grief counseling services for students and employees who wish to utilize them. Meanwhile, a candlelight vigil is planned for Panther Plaza on our main campus here in Melbourne. That is happening at 8 p.m. Tonight, Friday, November the 12th. I'd just also like to say that words cannot really express the loss in a situation like this. Florida Tech is a very close-knit family, and the loss of these students, employees, friends, alums is very difficult for us. We are at the very beginning of the grieving process and will be proceeding with that for some time. In addition to, obviously, our students, we are reaching out and have reached out to the families of those who lost loved ones. We have staff here with families, and we have staff as well at the crash site where some family members have gathered as well. At this point, we're going to go ahead and open it up to any questions for myself or for Dean Scott.
Sir, can you talk a little bit about 2 active students? You mentioned set to graduate in December. These were already experienced students at this point. How would you describe their level of experience? Characterize the level of experience?
Yeah, and they were fairly experienced students, but at the same time they were flight students. So at the senior level, they're probably at the 200-hour mark or thereabout. So relatively speaking, that's experience, but very, very junior pilots in terms of the profession. Like our pilots leave Florida Tech. They're typically commercial pilots. They have instrument rigs, they have multi-engine rigs, and some of them are certified flight instructors. They're qualified currently to come out of here and to go into corporate or airlines as junior pilots. They could go into a regional airline or go into a major airline as what we call a first officer. So they would be a professional pilot under training. So it's all relative to new students. They were fairly experienced, but relative to your professionals who've been in the business for a long time, they were very young and relatively experienced.
And who was at the controls?
Well, we don't know that. We don't know who was at the controls, and I don't like speculating, but in this case I will, probably because it was an instructional flight. More than likely the student was at the controls with the instructor sitting right next to the student. But again, that's just typically how it's done.
In a situation like that, would the teacher be in a position that they could take over if there was an issue?
Absolutely, and then whether or not the instructor actually took over, we don't know. And obviously the results of any accident depend on a number of things, one of which how much time you have. And unfortunately, when things happen on takeoff, there's not a lot of time for reaction or transfer of controls or whatever. So
It's a little confusing confusing. From what I've been reading in different places, it sounds like they got 2 miles from the airport, but yet they were still at the runway. How is that possible?
It's my understanding, and the evidence we've seen so far is that the plane crash actually took place on airport property. So they could not have been 2 miles from the airport. It's right. It had to be just after liftoff on airport property.
Dean, forgive my ignorance, are there 2 sets of controls? You know, some of us think of driver's ed.
Our training airplanes have 2 sets of controls. So you have a set on the left and a set on the right, so that the instructor has easy access to the controls.